With Dr. Mark Wiley, who is a Filipino martial arts grandmaster, doctor of Oriental medicine, and Filipino martial arts historian. He has decades of experience and qualifications in acupuncture, Tui Na clinical qigong, herbal medicine, Thai yoga massage, and muscle energy technique. He is the president and founder of Integrated Eskrima Systems, and he has achieved the rank of master instructor under the legendary GM Angel Cabales, the highest rank under GM Angel Cabales, which was only given to 16 people. Dr. Mark Wiley has written no less than 7 books on Filipino martial arts, and we're going to ask him some questions about those books today. He's written hundreds of articles, served as an editor for Tuttle Publishing, Unique Publications, and Multimedia Books, and has served in various editorial positions for Martial Arts Illustrated, Martial Arts Legends, and the Journal of Asian Martial Arts, which is a great publication, by the way. There will be links at the end of the interview to Dr. Mark Wiley's arts-related websites and to pages on Amazon.com where the texts that Dr. Mark Wiley has written, which can be purchased at that time. We will be putting those links up probably within the week, just to be clear. They're not going to be right when the video ends. We have to edit the video. Dr. Mark Wiley, how can people reach you if they want to study internal medicine or martial arts with you?
Well, thank you for that nice introduction, Thomas, first. Second, they can go to my website. Well, they can find me on Facebook, of course. That's the easiest way. For the health-related material, I have a group page called Dr. Mark Wiley on Facebook, and on regular Facebook, it's just Mark V. Wiley. And then for the Filipino stuff, there's a group page for Integrated Eskrima International. And for the Chinese material, Kung Fu, there is the Beng Hung Gocho Kun Association. Those links will be at the end. And of course, if someone wants to talk to me personally about something, they can give me a call at 215-429-2649. And I return all the phone calls, and my email is mvwiley@gmail.com. Always happy to get correspondences and to talk with other teachers, masters, students, and help in any way I can.
And what can you tell us about your work in internal arts of acupuncture, Tui Na, and clinical qigong?
Well, when I got into them, interestingly, because since a very young age, I suffered severe chronic daily migraine headaches and daily musculoskeletal pain. My father's a physician, an osteopathic physician. My mother's psychologist. I spent a lot of time going around between doctors for this pain. At one point, by the age of 13 or 14, maybe 15, in that area, I was on about 14 pills a day, prescription pills a day for my pain.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite bad. Bad migraines, chronic cluster headaches, tension headaches, musculoskeletal pain, and vomiting, throwing up, lying in bed for a day or 2 or 3 or 4 at a time with cold compresses, shaking and sweating from the pain. And I really just wanted to heal myself, find a way. And my father is an osteopath, which is a more kind of holistic physician than like the traditional MD, for example. He was a big fan of running. He was juicing. He was a vegetarian at the time, making his own yogurt in the house. He would, taking supplements, and so he was really providing me with that kind of early foundation. He had a book on his bookshelf on acupuncture, and he had actually studied acupuncture briefly in 1974, I think, or 73, at the first school in the United States in Maryland. But he just couldn't reconcile the theories of acupuncture with those of Western medicine. They just don't kind of line up really well in terms of anatomy and physiology, different paradigms. But he would take me to his chiropractor. He would do adjustments on me. He taught me the muscle energy technique, which is an osteopathic technique for correcting muscle imbalances and trigger points. We can talk about more in a bit. And then at the age of about 15, I started seeking out traditional healers because the pain was just too high. It was all kinds of meds, getting injections, going to the hospital. It was just bad news. So I started seeking out Qigong masters, herbalists, bone setters, whatever I can find, massage therapists, energy healers, meditation instructors, taking different nutrients and all this, and some of them worked pretty well for a while, and some of them didn't work at all, and I would wonder why. How come I have a really bad pain in my neck and my shoulders today, and the chiropractic really helped? Then the next time I went, the chiropractic adjustment made it worse. And how come sometimes I wake up with a migraine and I take my prescription meds, and it like knocks it out right away, and then like the next time it doesn't do anything, and I've got to take it again, and I got to take it again, and then I get another headache, a different feeling headache on top, which they call rebound headaches from the toxicity of all the meds. And I knew, like, from the age of 12 that I wanted to be a healer, and I wanted to be a martial arts master. And I just thought they go hand in hand in India, they go hand in hand in China, and I'm going to make them go hand in hand in my life somehow. And I just started apprenticing with Qigong masters while in high school, and then traveling around the world to seek out different treatments.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What countries did you visit, and where did you receive your training?
So, let's see. I visited, for healing. So we start with, we can go Philippines, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Singapore. I think it should be 7 Asian countries. I don't know if I think that was 7. So 7 Asian countries, and traveling through those countries, meeting with different healers. I mean, in Malaysia, I met with herbalists and bone setters and spiritual healers in the Indian tradition, in the Chinese tradition, and in the Malay traditions. In the Philippines, I met with what they call Manghi Hilot, or the massage therapists there, with arbolarios, the herbal practitioners, with the espirititas, the spiritual healers, with faith healers. I went out down in Mindanao and met with the Matigsalug tribe and met with their traditional shamans. I met shamans in Malaysia. Taiwan, it was Tuina and acupuncture and herbal medicine, and on and on. So I ended up studying, getting into they had a 6-clinic program in the Philippines that had Tuina, acupuncture, herbal medicine, qigong. Acupuncture, herbal medicine, qigong. There was 5. I forget. Anyway, it's so long ago. And we worked between all of those, and through the Philippine Chinese Institute of Tuina Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, Dr. Ong Kok Seng, who's a grandmaster of the Zuren Men, or natural style boxing of Wang Lai Sung, and inherited his healing tradition, was the head of that program. And I studied and apprenticed mostly with him for that. For acupuncture, to supplement my acupuncture training, I work with Dr. Robert Chu, who's a Wing Chun master in Los Angeles, but also extremely well versed in traditional medicine. He and I both completed a program with the Indian Board of Alternative Medicine. Mine was I think his was on acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and I did mine on pain and migraine headaches. And my book, Outwitting Headaches, was taken from my thesis for my doctoral dissertation. And and then I did probably another 30 or 40 hours of courses in Hong Kong, Chinese medicine, and through the MedBoo group in China, and a bunch of CEU courses here in the U.S. I learned the Thai yoga massage from Alan Orr, who's a student of mine in Eskrima. But Alan is a Tuina master and a Thai yoga massage master, and one of the head of teachers in the United Kingdom. And but he now lives in New Zealand. But I did all my courses with Thai yoga massage through him in that association. So
we have to get you up on myfma.net, because there are often people that are looking for internal medicine practitioners, and it's very hard to find them.
Yeah, it's more and more popular these days. I mean, right now, acupuncture is probably as popular as chiropractic was 10 years ago, so it's gaining ground. It took a while for chiropractic to kind of catch on, and you still have your naysayers for all of it. But for me, natural is always better. Non-invasive is always better. non-toxic is always better.
Yeah.
Although, you know,
Yeah.
someone said to me once, well, if you have pain and you take herbs or Chinese, pills from Ayurvedic or Chinese or homeopathic medicine, you're still taking medicine. And I said, yeah, but it's not killing and wrecking your kidney and your liver, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just it. But they don't work as fast as, if you have a migraine, you could take Excedrin, right? Excedrin migraine or something, Furacet or whatever. And your headache can, decrease rapidly or go away within a half hour maybe or an hour. If you have a headache, a full-blown migraine, and you take like Tianma Wotangwan or something in Chinese medicine, one of the herbal supplements, you're still going to have a headache. I mean, they're not used the same way as Western medications are, which come in and treat the symptoms. Like your symptom is pain, so we're going to block the nerve endings so you don't feel the pain, and then try and change the blood vessels. If it's dilated or constricted, we're going to change that process through these meds, right? But it doesn't change what is it in your body that's allowing for that to happen. What is the environment inside your body that it's allowing the blood vessels to change their position, from normal to dilated, expanded or contracted and causing this pain. Well, in the Chinese medicine, you take it every day, 3 times a day, for weeks and weeks and months or however long it's going to be, and you gradually start to see the changes.
Okay.
Because, the Chinese medicine is based on what they call patterns of imbalance, right, or syndromes, and you have to identify. So 5 people with migraine headaches can each be given 5 different herbal remedies or acupuncture point selection, for example, right? Because the cause of their migraine might be different. But if you take 5 people with different ailments, somebody has a migraine, one person has PMS, one person has eczema, one person, whatever the arthritis, they could all maybe be given the same exact herbal remedy in Chinese medicine, because the imbalance in their body is exactly the same, but it's just manifesting. One as a headache, one manifests as eczema, one manifests as PMS cramping, one manifests as acid reflux. It's just how our own body, where's the weak point that the water breaks through the well, right?
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Pattern of imbalance that is important, and there's like 60 some basic patterns of imbalance in Chinese medicine that repeat, that you see over and over and over. And people say, well, how do you... I mean, there's lists of sometimes 30 signs and symptoms associated with one pattern of imbalance. And some people say, well, how do you remember all that? And it's like, well, it's kind of like food. I mean, I love food, and if I say to you, Thomas, open up your fridge and you see a loaf of bread, mayonnaise, celery, a can of tuna fish, and spaghetti sauce, what do you have?
Sounds like a lot of carbohydrates.
Right, but you're going to say I have the makings of a tuna fish sandwich and a one-off jar of tomato sauce. You know that tomato sauce does not go with the tuna fish sandwich, right?
Yeah.
So when you see the syndrome made up of these signs and symptoms, you can say, oh, these all match together, but this one is a one-off. So treat these 5 or 6 or 8 things with this one remedy or this one set of acupuncture points, and this other one is a one-off, right? But in Western medicine, we'd say you've got 6 things. So here's your asthma medication, your pain medication, your insomnia medication, your anxiety medication, right? And it's all messed up because the FDA says you can't put out a product that has multi-use. It has to be trialed on one particular thing, right? It has to be for migraine pain, not migraine and PMS and depression and eczema. Has to be for one. In Chinese medicine, they say if the formula is only good for one ailment, it's a low-quality formula because it has to fix the imbalance in the body that's causing the problem, right? So it's all about the balance. Yeah, and that's for me, that's what helped me get through all of that pain growing up. I mean, I had it until I was about 32, and it was very hard doing martial arts when you're getting kicked and punched and you're trying to stretch and punch and do repetitions, swinging your stick or throwing punches, and everything is just cramped, everything hurts. You wake up the next day, your head is blaring in pain, or later that day, or your spine all the way down is just inflamed. The nerves are inflamed. It made it very difficult, but did my best and tried as hard as I could.
When we put the links up, you have a really interesting background in internal medicine, and we definitely will put the top 5 or 3 to 5 books, whatever you recommend. at the end
Great.
of the video so that
Yep.
people can take a look at your internal medicine books too.
Thanks. I probably wrote more articles about alternative medicine and holistic healing than I did about martial arts.
Okay.
And so there's probably 250 articles out there, and
Wow.
4 books on health, right? Whereas
Okay.
martial arts, it's like 10 martial art books, but only about 80 articles. Only. That's still a lot. But the
Yeah,
last
that is
10
a lot.
years, yeah, the last 10 years has been mostly health writing.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like my progression, right? Although now I'm starting to do some more martial arts stuff, so got to balance it.
Yep, you have to stay in balance.
You know, every martial artist has pain, right?
Oh yeah.
So I like to sometimes do seminars where we teach some of the healing aspects for martial arts. You know, for bruises, contusions, sprains, for muscle cramps and pains and trigger points, and for fatigue and different things like that. So, but the audience is slow to accept it. Although I see chat for it all over the internet. You know, we bring it up and everybody says, I want to learn it, and then you do it in the summer, like, well, can't we do more techniques? I'm really having fun. I don't want to stop and do body work or stop and talk about supplements or herbs. You know, it's like, okay, but somewhere I hope to be able to find a good connecting point for that stuff, because that would really, I'd be more passionate about that than doing them separately.
Now, you've written a lot of books that in martial arts that would be deemed
Yeah.
anthropological or you know, have some historical significance on the people in martial arts. Have you done the same thing in internal medicine?
No. There's so much already written about traditional medicine.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of anthropological, what they used to call monographs or reports or papers that were published early on by anthropologists. There's a lot of
Okay.
anthropology books by people like Mircea Eliade and Clifford Geertz and some others who talk about some of the healing stuff. And then there's so many books out there on massage and Ayurvedic medicine and Reiki and even newer things like quantum touch and polarity therapy, and there's Tuina and yoga massage. I mean, there's bazillion books already in that. So the books I've written are basically how to user-friendly DIY, right? Do-it-yourself approach to curing yourself of migraine headaches, hypertension, arthritis, as much as possible. You know, and the Qigong book that I did is a instructional book on developing qi in your body from using sets of exercises. I tried to write a book. You wouldn't believe, you know, for all the books I've published, there's a whole bunch that are done that nobody wanted to publish, that I spent a lot of time writing, that are just sitting in my basement, manuscripts. But I started writing a book in 1999 called The Martial Artist as Healer. And I wanted to write a book about martial artists in different cultures who also happen to be versed in the healing tradition of that culture. And what does that mean, that harm-heal paradigm, that kill and cure, you know? If I can take a life, I can save a life. And philosophically, anthropologically, and practically, what does that mean for them as a practitioner? What does that mean for their students? What does that mean for their school or their practice? And how do they pull those together? So I had interviews with and photographs with people, you know, of Indian descent, Indian, you know, Chinese, Malay. We had Silat teachers, escrimadors, Chinese kung fu masters, all different styles. Talking about both, and for, I don't know, probably tried for 7 years to get a publisher.
Oh, wow.
Everybody kept saying there's no interest in that topic. And I kept saying, well, I'm interested, you know. And they said, well, you know, keep your own book then.
It's too bad that they didn't. Oh, I was going to say, it's too bad that they didn't think about getting the book published and do it in Asia somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think people in Asia care about that either, honestly.
Oh, okay.
You know, most of the masters over there don't do the healing stuff. They might be very religious or spiritual, some of them, not all of them, but they don't really. The kung fu guys are doing kung fu, and some of them make the dajiao or the lineaments, you know. And some of the Arnis guys do heal or spiritual healing, but not as a practice, you know. Usually, and not all of them do it. I mean, it's not really. It's something that I had as a romantic fantasy in my head from watching kung fu movies, you know, and reading books about philosophy and Zen and Buddhism and Taoism, that that the town healer is also the town martial artist, master, helping the whatever. But I think that time has come and gone. But I'm hoping to, with Tambuli Media, my own company now that I'm publishing materials, to revive that book and update it and bring it out in 2014, by the end of 2014. So
That'd be great.
I'd be happy to do that. Yeah. There's a good book that came out called Way of the Ancient Healer by Virgil Mayer Apostle. He's a Balintawak, I believe, a Balintawak practitioner, Eskrima, and he wrote a pretty good book. I mean, really good book. North Atlantic Press. I think it came out a year or two ago. But that's one if people are interested to go ahead and take a look at. I'll recommend that one.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And just to shift gears, we're going to start covering some martial arts topics. What I was going to ask you was, where do you typically instruct martial arts? Do you have a dojo, or do you rent out other facilities?
I have a what could be called a kun, which is a Chinese training space, and it's set up in the Chinese fashion in my home in the basement, okay, that I use to practice qigong, meditate, and do Chinese martial arts. The ceiling's too low for a Eskrima, otherwise I would have that in there. It's only about 6.5 feet or something, 7 feet.
Okay.
So some people you can't swing much. You can do knife work, but So I teach that art there. I teach the 5 ancestor fists, kung fu, and some qigong exercises there to some students, private students. And then I have a class every Monday night in Eskrima for 2 hours, 5 to 7, in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and it's in a dojo in a student's home. And it's got to be a 10-foot high ceiling. It's 600 square feet. I mean, it's pretty good space, all matted and whatever. And we have class there on Mondays. That's the only teaching that I do on a regular basis, and just because of time and family obligations. I've got 2 children, single dad with 2 children, 8-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy that I'm running to baseball and ballet and gymnastics, and laundry and grocery shopping and feeding them. And then my fiance Kelly has 2 7-year-olds, or twins, and we get their activities, and I spend time at her house when my kids are with my ex. And there's like one day a week when I don't have anything to do with that I have to take care of the family, and that's Monday. So that's when I do my Eskrima class. And then I try and run out and do seminars as frequently as I can, which has not been frequent. I mean, over the summer I think I had to cancel 5 because I ran out of time. I mean, Hawaii and Vancouver and Los Angeles and England. I just had to postpone them all to 2014. However, I got a couple coming up, and we'll see. We'll keep doing more.
Yeah, we do have an advertisement for your seminar up on myfma.net, yeah. And people who are interested in doing a seminar, it's a very rare opportunity to be able to do a seminar with a man who has teaching credentials in what, 5 to 6 arts, right? At least.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, so it would be crazy not to go out for the one day. I think the price was $50-$60. Sounds like a deal.
Yeah, it's a deal.
Yeah, it is a deal.
It's my first time in LA in like 10 years, so I don't get out there very often anymore. I used to. So I hope that people come out for that, and then I'll be doing Black Belt TV will be covering the seminar on their show, and Cage Radio will be doing an interview with me out there. And I'll be doing an interview for Way of the Balisong documentary. They'll be including me in that documentary, and please visit wayofthebalisong.com and learn more about that, and donate some money for the production if you've got it. $5, $10, $1,000.
Okay.
That would be great. And then I'm doing I just saw, because of this big typhoon that came through the Philippines, I was just in the Philippines a month ago, and I took a trip to Hong Kong to meet up with some friends and do some teaching, and a big typhoon came through, Superstorm Usagi, and they closed the airport for 2 days in Hong Kong, so I had to head back to the Philippines a day and a half early because of that, and then it drenched the place for a while. But now last night, this massive storm came through the Philippines, the biggest one they think in recorded history, and just drenched the place. So I saw that somebody had posted on Facebook today that they're putting together a fundraising seminar for the Philippine Red Cross December 8th in Virginia, and I'm going to go. I told them I'll come down, I'll teach, and we just donate all the money to the Philippine Red Cross. Everybody come on out and support it. We just need to help these guys. I mean, millions of people displaced. They just had a huge earthquake last month that displaced them, and some of these people have been living in tents, and now those are gone, and it's just a bad scene. We really need to reach out.
Yeah, I appreciate your opportunity and your effort there, Dr. Mark Wiley. I was on the phone last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning speaking to a friend in the Manila area, and she was telling me that the Thai food's coming and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that's my dear friend Lena. I've been chatting with her on the internet for about 4 years now.
Wow.
And she's a dear friend of mine and my family's. You know, with regard to your martial arts, you told me you made an offer to me about training over the internet on YouTube.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because somebody might be interested in that. So
I have a lot of people reach out to me who want to study with me. They want to study the integrated Eskrima method that I share, and they want to learn the 5 ancestor fist kung fu, which is an extremely rare style. It's a Fukian, Chinese Fukian style, which is quite rare here in the U.S. However, it's very popular in Southeast Asia and in South China. It's the official art of the Quanzhou Shaolin Temple these days. And my teacher is Grandmaster Alex Ko, who trains and teaches in the Beng Kiam Athletic Association, which is the oldest kung fu school in the Philippines. And it's like 81 years old. It's been there. It was established like 80 plus years ago in Binondo, you know, their Chinatown in Manila. And I've been with him now exactly 20 years. And 15 years ago, he and the Beng Kiam Association gave me permission to open up an association here in the U.S. called Beng Hung, named after the founder Chua Gyok Beng and my teacher's master, my grandmaster Tanka Hung, Beng Hung, Athletic Association. And so we just had our 15-year anniversary and celebrated it in Manila. My student Russ Smith came with me. And so there's a lot of people there's not many people. I mean, basically traditional martial arts are dead from a commerce perspective. I mean, everybody wants MMA or jiu-jitsu or, you know, Philippine arts, whatever. The only traditional arts that still have a strong following are like Aikido and Tai Chi, which is this kind of new age or healthy or spiritual group of people, which is separate from the fighting arts people. But for the regular martial arts, we've kind of suffered, so it's very hard to attract students into a traditional kung fu system. I think as traditional as people go is really Wing Chun, you know, which is more modern than most, you know. But so people have been reaching out to me, how can I train? How can I train? I'm alone here in Canada. I don't have any students, or I'm over here in Australia or New Zealand or Sweden. And I say, okay, I'll put together Russ Smith, actually my student Russ, who's a Goju and Kobudo teacher, he down in Florida, he urged me to put together distance training programs for them. And I said, yeah, I just don't want to have this thing where like I just send somebody a DVD and they get like a certificate. So I thought about it for a good 6 or 7 months, and I put together these what they call the DLP programs, where I filmed the curriculum for each module or level of training in depth and detail. So they're not show-offy DVDs where they're edited well and lots of cool music and you see me kicking some butt and, you know, and throwing guys down and acting tough, you know. It's got none of that, because it's really there not to be a sales pitch for me, but to be a teaching vehicle for the students. So we go through the stances and the footwork and the strikes and the movements and the combinations and stick exactly to the curriculum. So and I put them up on private YouTube channels. So when somebody wants to join the program, they pay for one level, and then I add them to the private channel so they can view. So with the Eskrima, I think it's 2 or 3 videos on YouTube for one level. I mean, it's a lot of material because I'm talking, explaining, and showing. And then they get a PDF as well that has the definition and description of all the stuff that's required, but then it has the outline that follows the video. So when they want to learn the stuff, they can read and understand the explanation, but when they want to train, they just follow the outline. and that outline follows the video, and vice versa. And then I give them 2 rounds to video themselves and put it up on the private channel to send to me, and I'll watch it and I'll critique it, and then I'll send them back notes for correction. If they need a lot of correction, then I'll video myself explaining where they need their notes and put that up on a private channel. Then they send me another one, and if it's good enough, then they pass that level and get a certificate of passing the level, and they can then go into level 2.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it follows the same format that my classes follow, and anyone who's a member of the distance learning program can come to my class for free.
You know what we need to do is we need to get you up on the Google Hangout on Air and have you teaching over that.
Sure.
The only problem, of course, is the frame rate.
Right.
I mean, you'd have to move so slow because everything
right.
would be a blur with a strike or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So, or maybe I can just film a couple of lessons, short lessons, and we can just put them up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'd love to share it. So, yeah. So the distance learning programs, if you go to integratedeskrima.com or gojokun.wordpress.com, both of them will have the links at the end here. But they have a section called Distance, one of the tabs, and has all the information on how to join, what it's about, where to sign up, and how to do the whole thing. It explains it all. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. If you email me those links, I'll embed them in the back of the video, and people will be able to follow up with you on that.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Now, you've got this upcoming training camp, the seminar, and what I was wondering is what people will learn and what will the experience be like?
So, interesting for me anyway, I hope for other people too, when I teach seminars, I have a series of 6 or 7, I don't know what you say, frameworks for seminars that I teach. And I don't like going, for myself, I don't like going to seminars where they're just blaring through techniques. Here's this disarm, here's that disarm, here's this counter, here's that counter, and this is from this style, and this one's from this style, and over here, now let's jump to this drill, now here's another drill, now here's a different drill. And you leave and you felt like you did a lot of stuff and you can't remember anything, and you don't know how anything fits together. It's like this drill we learned floating out in the world, and then we learned these 7 techniques over here, and then we learned 2 techniques here and another drill over here. Is one more advanced than the other, and what comes first, and what can I do with this stuff, right? So, and that type of seminar format, I guess, helps a lot of people because people are going, and that's okay. But it seems like, for me, that there's a different way to approach it, and there's something missing in the Filipino arts here in the U.S., and I think it's missing because the last 25 years, most of the people in this country have learned their FMA in seminars rather than in a club, right? So you had Stockton, California, with all these, well-known masters, Angel Cabalas and Gilbert Tenio and Leo Hiron and Max Sarmiento, and now you've got their students, Art Gonzalez and Darren Tibon. I mean, the late Tony Somero, but Joe Juanitas and Dentoy Revelar, and they still have these schools teaching traditional Arnis or Eskrima, right? And that's like so awesome. And then down in LA, you've got a bunch of teachers, and then in Hawaii you have some, and then there's not much in the middle of the country, No. And if you come out to the East Coast, and there used to be a couple of teachers. I mean, you have the SciUp group, and Matt Marinas, and but there's not many schools. Even most of Remy's guys all learned in seminars. Remy Presas, including myself, I was his student as well, and so people just got stuff like. They got this technique, these counters, this drill, then they added in from this style and added in from this style, and everybody's just making it up as they go, and everybody's filling their teaching curriculum with stuff they're grabbing from everywhere. And it's like, so that's why there's no style. Back in the 80s, it was like we had Doce Paris, Modern Arnis, Serrata Eskrima, Mahalana, whatever. It was like you could count 15 styles in FMA, and now there's like 7,000.
Yeah.
Everybody becomes a grandmaster, and everybody's doing their own thing and put their own name on it. So, because they're grabbing stuff from videos and seminars and DVDs and exchanging with other people, and but it's really hard to say like, what style are you really doing if you're trying to connect yourself with the traditional style, meaning one generation earlier than us. Or if you're looking for some, do the people putting those things together really have an understanding of what is more advanced than something? So I just skirt around that whole issue because the system that I teach is integrated Eskrima is based on a teaching method. There's no new techniques there, so I didn't create anything, techniques, but I did put together a teaching and a training methodology that is unique and speaks to very important issues, and this is what I teach in my seminars to let you know I'm still on that topic.
Yep.
Is that it speaks to the strategy. You know, most people train in FMA and it's like, okay, defense against angle 1, here are the ways you do it, right? Inside block, outside block, roof block, payong, umbrella, whatever. Here's angle 2, defenses against 3, 4, 5, 12. Here's a reflex drill, here's a box pattern, here's some sparring drills, here's a palasut drill, here's some disarming drills. Okay, now we've got it. You know, here's some Sinawali, and they just kind of like have this stuff, but what's the through line? Where's the spine of the material, right? How does the one relate to the other? And what's the strategy here? Is my strategy to learn how to block really fast and counter, or is my strategy to take out the opponent? For me, the strategy is to take out the opponent. He's an armed assailant coming to kill me. I need to take him out and not screw around with ties and lockups and lots of drills and learning how to block really quickly and blah, 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 you know? So the strategy one of the seminars that I teach, and this will be in LA, part of it, I'll teach 4 segments, is on strategy. How to achieve the strategy. First, what is the strategic objective? For me, it's be to the outside of either arm, so you're not in between 2 things to fight and defend, right? Mm-hmm. And then be next to or behind him where he can't counter, or it's very hard for him to counter, and to hit him at every count. So, and how do we achieve that? Well, you need some really good footwork. So I'm going to teach a footwork section, but you need to know what range you're in for what footwork you use, because the techniques only work in 1 or 2 of the ranges, but not all 3. So if you want to use 1 technique in 2 ranges, usually different footwork is required. Most people don't know this material. They say they know it. They talk about, oh, we zone off and we have the 3 ranges, but then they're almost 80% or 90% of the people that I see, they're doing these inside blocks and umbrellas and roof blocks a little too far out of range, that if the guy was swinging through and heavy and not hitting and stopping, you know, or hitting and looking to counter back because he knows there's going to be a counter because that's the drill, but he actually stayed there, man, these guys would be getting hit. And I do it all the time when I meet people, and I show them very nicely. I say, here, let's just practice here. And I show them where the gaps are, and I call them gap filling techniques. So I'll have a section on ranged footwork and technique, a section on achieving strategic position on your opponent, and the techniques are the example of how to do it. The technique is not the teaching method, right? The technique is less important. The technique is less important than the strategy that you're trying to achieve or the concept that you're putting forward. So if my strategy is to be on the outside of your arm and my objective is to hit you, then there's 1,000 techniques I can use to achieve that, right? But if you're in the wrong range or using the wrong footwork or using a wrong technique, you could get yourself into a bad position, right? So we show a bunch of examples of the techniques to achieve that strategy, regardless of what strikes he's throwing. So my method of teaching is opposite of most, where they start with the attack and they show you the counters. I say, here's our objective, regardless of the angle that you're throwing, because I don't care about the block. The block is 2 or 3 or 4 pieces in my mind back, because I'm doing other things first. When you strike, I'm stepping. When you strike, my stick is also going forward, or my sword, or my knife, or my hands, right? Mm-hmm. I strike at the same time. So there's these kind of concepts that I'm going to be putting forth that are universal, because I'm not telling you to change your style or change the techniques that you're doing. I'm saying here's a way to train them that's different but more effective, because you're working from the end rather from the beginning, right? The beginning is he strikes and I got to block, and then I got to find a way to counter, and then use reflexes for his counter of my counter, then get in and control him and hit him. That's working from the beginning. I'm working from the end, which is my objective is to be over here and to hit him and take him out, and then I work backward to accomplish it. Okay. Yeah.
What are your earliest memories performing martial arts with anyone? Do you have anything especially unique?
Yeah. Well, I just remember my Taekwondo teacher, Kwak Byung Yul, when I was 10, 9. I couldn't do the jump spinning hook kick really well because I've always had tight hips, right? Even though I did Taekwondo and Savate, 2 kicking arts, but always had tight hips and always feeling that they were pulled muscles, right? In the hips and the hamstrings, the low back always hurt. This is part of that pain I had growing up as a kid. I realize now I have pretty bad arthritis in my left hip and moderate arthritis in the right, and they want to do both hip replacements. I just don't feel like doing it. But I'm managing that pain right now with self acupuncture and herbs and energy. We'll see how long I can hold out. But the arthritis is a result of a birth defect. So what happened was that the head of the femur, so you have your thigh bone, and then it looks like a little stick in a popsicle. You have this ball and socket joint in your hips, right? So my bones grew a little bit rounded, and the head of the growth plate off the head of there moved, and it shifted the way my hips sit in my hip socket, the way that the thigh bone, goes in. So it's been wearing away and wearing away and wearing away for 40 years, and causing arthritis. And no wonder there's all that pain since I was a kid, because the legs can't flex sideways the right way because the bone is tilted and it's hitting the thing. So anywho, I couldn't get that jump spinning hook kick well, and the Korean teacher, this was back when there was no kid classes and clapping and birthday parties. It was kids are in with the adults, and you do what you're going to do, or you're doing push-ups and mopping the floor after class, and I loved it, Yeah. And but he had this split bamboo stick, with tape, like a shinai, but in style, but just a bamboo stick with some tape on it, 3 pieces of tape, but it was split. So, and he would just smash it down as I was jumping and kicking. He would just smash it down on my foot, and it would just be hitting my toes and the bones, because you're supposed to be able to turn your hip enough so that your heel hits and your leg is coming across flat, and mine would loop almost like a crescent kick, which is a good kick. It's just a different kick. It wasn't the one he wanted, and I just couldn't get it. I just remember feeling tortured, and then eventually it became one of my best kicks back then, but now I can't do it. It's just too painful. But that was it, that discipline piece, and then the need to feel like I had to do it, because I wanted Sabunim to be happy with my progress. That was an important piece. Training with Angel Kabbalists was an amazing experience for me, because I had read about his life in Danny Nosano's book, and Gilbert George Foon, the Filipino martial arts as taught by Danny Nosano, and how there's just a picture of him sitting there on the table looking ornery, and he's short, and then he's like, these guys in Alaska want to kick his ass, and he goes out and twiddles down the stick and beats them up, and I just thought, yeah, that's right. I want to learn some of that ass whooping, and I just thought I got to go train with this guy, and I had already been training in modern Arnis with Remy Plaisas, which was a thrill in itself. I was a teenager, and just have the Grandmaster swinging at me, and Remy is just ambidextrous, left and right hander, 100% equal, and you couldn't tell which hand. And I just thought that was amazing. How many people do we see ambidextrous like that? And he was very friendly, and he would strike really hard, and he's a bit of a showman too. And he'd go, attack, ha ha, bang bang. And you'd think wow, I'm really holding my own here, but you realize he's not even hitting hard. He's just making the noise. But I was 15, and just wow, my Kempo karate teacher, Joe Bridenstine, was one of the first guys who brought Remy out to the East Coast and had his camps for a decade out there, and so I did that in high school. But then with Grandmaster Kabbalis, I wanted to go out and train with him, and I befriended him and became close. At one point, he was trying to have me marry his niece or somebody in the Philippines. I think I still have the picture he gave me in the letter we wrote back and forth back in 1988 or something like that. But he was so little, I'm little. I'm only 5'5", so he's probably 5'3". I'm thinking back then we weighed about the same. I was about 135 pounds. Now 198, 200, somewhere in there. But he was just so nice and enjoyable to be around. But once he started moving, it was like you saw the eyes, and it was like, okay, and he had these big knuckles. I call them knuckles. The wrist bones were like these marbles sitting on there. You know, so when we did these empty hand blocks and you'd get your thing hitting there, or he'd do his cross block and you'd bang your arm on that sucker, you're like, man, how did that thing get there? You know, is that from training hard and it's like calluses or calcium deposits or what?
Yeah.
Who knows, you know? But one minute he's cooking me homemade garlic chicken in his frying pan in the kitchen, and then we're in his living room swinging around and you know, going pretty fast. And I remember his son Jelmar and his daughter Mary Jo were just in diapers, walking around. Now Jelmar's a master and training with Darren T-Bone. But it looks just like his dad when his dad was younger. But they were in diapers, and I was training in the living room, and I couldn't get cross block against angle 6 correct, and we sat there for 1 hour with him feeding me angle 6 in slow motion again and again. I said, I can do it if you strike fast. I can get it, you know, no problem. He said, yeah, but anybody can move fast. But if you can't do it slow with the timing correct, you know, when you do it fast, if his timing's better, you're going to get hit. So you got to be able to do it slow, like playing music. If you can play the song slow and stay on beat, then you're good, right? You can play it fast, but anybody can blur notes together. He said, I don't want you to blur my techniques. The count is 1, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a twirl in the serrata, and that twirl isn't just hit under, check, and hit on top. It's hit under when the check hits, the stick is 50% of the way, and when the check moves, the other 50%, the stick hits on top. There's a timing issue. You need to have a check on the hand when the stick is off, because in the hand the opponent's weapon hand is free to hit you. But you want the timing of that check to be right in the middle of that arco or circle strike. Otherwise, if you check too soon and move away, then there's 3/4 of the time where he has to move into your space, right? So anybody can whip it out really quickly, but if you can't do it on time and slow, you'll never get the actual timing correct. So in the angle 6, the same thing happened over and over and over until I finally got it, and now it's like super ingrained in my body. You know, it's crazy. But I remember I slept in the guest room at his house, and I didn't realize it was a guest room, you know. And one night I walked out at like 2 in the morning or whatever to use the restroom, and I tripped over him. He was sleeping on the floor in the living room. And I said, Manong, what are you doing? And he said, I'm sleeping here. Let you have my bedroom. And I was like, you can't let me have your bedroom. Yeah, you're my guest. You know, his wife Tess is in the room with the kids, you know, so he couldn't get sleep. The baby's still, so he had another room, and he gave me his room, and I was just like, wow. I mean, he was like 70, you know, or whatever. I mean, you can't do that. So I just slept on the floor with him in the living room because he refused to take the bedroom because that was for me, and I couldn't sleep there then after that, you know.
I've heard a lot of your interviews, and I never heard you say anything like that about Angel Cabales.
Yeah, for me, or toward me, he was very loving and kind. You know, and used to talk every week on the phone in between my trips out, because I lived out here in Philadelphia. And, you know, and a lot of other people tell me stories about how he's just rough and tumble and mean, so I guess it depends on what era you came to him. You know, I started training with him in his later life. There's a lot of people way more senior in Serrata than I am, you know, who trained with him in the 70s and the late 60s, you know, I got to him in the 80s. So, but I don't mean to say got to him. I mean, I was fortunate to train under him. So I think he was just different at different time periods, and he shared different material at different time periods. So there's a bunch of us who were there toward the end, who got a little bit different material than some of the people who were there at the beginning and then stopped training with him. You know, there's a lot of his seniors who are well known for being his seniors who didn't keep training with him after a certain point. You know, it doesn't mean they were not masters of the material that they got, of course. But I think his teaching method must have changed, and some of the material changed. And he made that comment to me when I was writing the book for him. But boy, did I get a lot of backlash on that comment. So I guess people don't want to believe that they don't have something. I don't know. No big deal.
What teachers do you have teaching credentials in?
Well, if we start from the beginning, Taekwondo, Savat, American Kempo, Wing Chun. Let me see, what other? And Five Ancestor Fist Kung Fu, which is the Gocho Kun. Those are those one-offs. And then for the Filipino stuff, we have Modern Arnis, Viñas Arnis, Cinco Terros Arnis, Calice Illustrissimo, Kali Arnis International, Estelilia Cabarawan. I think those are the only ones where I have, Lightning Scientific Arnis. Those are the only ones where I have like official rank in, but I have dozens of teachers and dozens of styles that I just train without looking for rank. I mean, after a certain point, the rank doesn't matter. Plus, you realize, like for me, I realized when I'm doing Lightning Scientific Arnis with the late Grandmaster Benjamin Luna Lima, I could sit there all day and mimic his techniques, right, and copy them and demonstrate for him. But then I can go train with Tatang Illustrissimo in the Philippines and then do their techniques, right, and mimic his techniques. And then I can go see another teacher, so many of them in the Philippines, and train and do their techniques. And I realized, okay, so at some point you've got to stop taking rank, because just because you can mimic their techniques and you can spit it back to them, if someone said to me, Mark, can you teach me, whatever system, Lightning Scientific Arnis, and show me the yellow belt material, I'd say no. But I can do the whole style myself. I just don't know how to teach it in their progression because I learned it in big chunks, right? Yeah. So I don't think it's fair then for me to say, oh, I teach Lightning Scientific, even though I'm very friendly with the group still, and train with Mang Ben, right? So, but I feel like if I can't sit there and actually go through their curriculum with you, then I'm not really a teacher of that style, right? I just learned the concepts or some of the movements from that style. So I stopped looking for and accepting rank certificates because of that. I thought it was it would be disingenuous for me to keep receiving them, at some point, right? And then I felt totally bored trying to learn other people's curriculums, because the curriculum of integrated Eskrima is based on the integrated methods, but it's not only based on my teacher's techniques, it's because a lot of techniques are thrown out the window. There's a whole bunch of Serrata techniques I don't teach in that curriculum. There's also some Illustrissimo techniques I don't teach. There's some Viñas Arnis techniques I don't teach, but there's a bunch that I do, But the system is not a Jeet Kune Do. It's not a composite style like Lameko Eskrima, for example. It is not where you could say this technique is from this teacher and this technique is from that teacher. I mean, broadly, I could say these 5 disarms are from Viñas and these 2 are from Remy Presas or something, but that's beside the point. It's not a patchwork system, right? What it is a method of looking at the encounter, and the whole teaching curriculum is based on achieving strategies, achieving position, achieving controlling time and space, meaning timing and positioning is more important than speed and reflexes, in my opinion. So the whole training is based around achieving these goals with a through line of connecting techniques and drills in a seamless way from level to level to level. So it's not based on here's just a bunch of disarms, here's a bunch of counters. I can do 56 counters on angle 1. Who cares, right? Why do I need to do 56 on angle 1? What if I have a strategy and a concept to work from, and I can make 1,000 variations to counter angle 1, depending on how fast, how slow, is he moving in, is he stepping back, am I moving in, am I stepping back or sideways, does my hand start down, does my hand start up before he strikes? I mean, there's 1,000 things where we're not just standing at attention waiting for the person to strike, right? So it's a little bit, after you get through the basics of learning those techniques that way, you have to kind of leave that behind and advance the training method. And so that's what integrated Eskrima is. It's an advancement of the training because it's looking to achieve something different and to develop something different within you as a practitioner, right? It's like learning how to improvise in music and jazz is so much harder at first than learning how to read notes in classical music and play. Like anybody can read some kind of written music and play a Beethoven tune, for example, right? But can you just look at the the chord progression, and totally create a song improvisationally in the moment,
Yeah.
without screwing up?
Not too many people can do that.
These bebop guys, I mean, and these jazz musicians are just crazy the way they can do that, right? And I figure like martial arts has to be the same way. You learn the scales, you learn the basic songs, you learn the basic counters to get something in the muscle memory, but then you got to learn how to improvise it, and improvise it and escalating that improvisation. It's got to be like, there's got to be a way to know if you're getting better and better and better, not just doing more horizontal stuff, right? More techniques is like a horizontal development, right? 3 techniques against angle 1, you're here. 20 techniques for angle 1, you're here. 100 techniques for angle 1, you're here.
Yeah.
Big deal. It's just more width. Where's the depth, right?
Yeah.
So you say 5 techniques from long range, 5 from medium range, 5 from close range, 5 with left leg forward, 5 with right leg forward, 5 while he's stepping in, you're stepping out, your hand starts here, your hand starts here, your hand starts here. You know, and then does he have 2 weapons? Do you have 2 weapons? I mean, does he hit and come back, hit and stay, hit and follow through, hit and switch the angle midway through? You've got to be able to answer all this, and just doing angle 1 and then doing your counter is not going to help you answer that. It's just going to get you the basic muscle memory, but not enough of the advancement. So, I just couldn't sit there for myself and bother learning more and more and more systems progressively. So I stopped taking the rank, and I stopped trying to do that. And instead, I just go and move around with the grandmasters and the masters and spar and do drills and free-flowing, I mean, not actual drills, and learn from the experience of their natural reactions against me and mine against them. And that's what I did on my recent trip when I met with, you know, another dozen masters and got together with them in all different styles, and we just had a blast. Yeah.
I'd like to shift gears again on you and ask you that anthropological question.
Yeah.
I was reading a really interesting document from another student whose name escapes me at the moment. He studied with GM Antonio Illustrissimo.
Yep.
And he was describing what it was like to get into the barrio in Manila for the first time. Going into Manila and some of the areas, it's not typically what you see in the United States of America because of the levels of poverty, and it's just something a little bit different. For our stateside viewers, can you describe what it was like training with GM Antonio Illustrissimo?
Sure. So most of my training with Tatang Illustrissimo, Tatang is just a term of respect, was done in Luneta Park, which is Rizal Park across from the Manila Hotel. And outside in the park, it's very beautiful there, and a lot of different martial artists are spread out in different parts of the park, right? So we'd have the Illustrissimo guys were over here, and then Alejandro Abrion, another late master, his Moro Orbis General style is over there from Sulu. And then we had the Arnis Defense Silat group over here. Jose Mina's Mina Arnis Doblete Rapilon was over by the Chinese Garden. Vicente Sanchez group over by the Rizal statue. I mean, there's just groups spread everywhere in this place, and you would just go, you're standing outside and you're training. However, he lived in Tondo in a bit of poverty, and Tondo is a very dangerous section of Manila. Interestingly, so Jose Mina opened up one of the first commercial Arnis clubs and associations in 1960s in Tondo called the Tondo Arnis Club. And Illustrissimo lived there, and then the Manila docks in Tondo, the shipping piers, is where Illustrissimo and Felicissimo Tizon worked together as foremen and security guards, and where Angel Cabalas met Tizon and started training with Tizon. There, Antonio Diego, who's the heir of the Illustrissimo style, worked the Tondo docks as well for a good part of his adult life. I remember going to the docks with him and just being a little bit petrified. I mean, just scary. Going through Tondo is scary. He said, yeah, you know, they use rubber bands and slingshots with sharpened nails, and they're hiding. You don't see them. They're shooting these nails at you to come and just take your food. I mean, anything, you know.
Yeah.
He had big sticks with copper wrapped around the handles and this with thick skin on the rattan. And I said, what's this for? He said, well, when my hand gets bloody, the blood goes into the copper grooves, and the stick won't slip out of my hand. And then he had a ballet song that had some dried marks on it. He said, "Yeah, 7 hits already." I'm assuming it's blood. He gave me both as a gift. I have them.
Wow.
Both that stick with the copper and the ballet song in my collection of gifts from different masters. And he asked me if I wanted to spend the night with him in the docks because something like the guards were on strike or something, and he's the only one there. And the shipping pier, the shipping was on strike, so all the stuff was going to be sitting overnight, and they thought they were going to get robbed, So did I want to stay and help him protect the stuff? And I just thought, yeah, I just have a 2-year-old boy. I don't want to die yet. And I got so much more to train. I whipped out a little bit. This is probably in 1994, 5 or 6 or something like that. Just kind of a real dangerous, real poor place. Yeah, Manila in general is just, it gets flooded. There's everybody throws out their plastic bags and their plastic straws, and it gets stuck in the sewage systems. It gets blocked up, so all the water floods onto the streets, and people's homes are getting flooded out in the little shanties with the corrugated aluminum, and you see by the train track, it's just these poor kids and with tumors on their faces selling, drinks in little bags with a straw and cigarettes, and it's really heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking.
Oh, you're mentioning cigarettes.
Yes, your favorite pastime.
I'll have to light a cigarette up if we keep talking about cigarettes.
That's right. Get rid of the cancer sticks and change to cancer dogs, right? Get the Chicago hot dog.
Yeah.
Bright glow in the dark red. At least you could take supplements to clean out the liver and kidneys from that. It's just hard to clean out the carcinogen and from the tar in the cigarettes. But
I hope that we stay in contact and you can help clean me up.
There you go. Yeah. Very poor over there. A lot of the masters don't have any money. They don't have many students. I feel really good that a lot of my books, Filipino martial culture and Filipino fighting arts in particular, drew a lot of attention to some of the less well-known masters in the Philippines. I mean, prior to those books, nobody knew about Illustrissimo in the West, really. Only a few people. He was never in articles. It was never written about. Nobody knew. Since the books came out that I did, and I helped Tony Diego and Christopher Ricketts get their book published, I mean, it was like this boom. And now the Illustrissimo is like this, revered style all over the world, and everybody goes to train with, the late Christopher Ricketts or Illustrissimo in the past, and now with Tony Diego and Yuli Romo and all these guys had zero, like almost no students prior to those works coming out. So I feel really fortunate that I was able to meet a lot of these elder masters at their peak prior to them passing and bring attention to their lives and to their arts, and to get more and more people to see that there's more to Filipino martial arts than Doce Paras and Modern Arnis and Serrata, although those are 3 great styles, and the teachers I all respect greatly, but they're not the only styles, And now you have a lot more people learning a lot more styles and aware of a lot more stuff because of the work that I did early on. And I just feel, when I go to the Philippines, they give me so much respect, and they come out of the way to thank me and the different masters and grandmasters, and it's really heartfelt. I mean, I feel really good about the efforts that I put forth. Over here in the U.S. for a good decade or so, I mean, everybody's just trying to kick my ass and say that I suck and my books suck and I'm writing lies and it's all bullshit and all this stuff. And really, you guys never went to the Philippines and researched this. How do you know? And just because your teachers told you some information over here and it's kind of been in the magazines and everybody's copying everybody's information, doesn't mean it's actually correct. You go to the Philippines, it's a different story. And don't shoot the messenger. I just wanted to find out for myself, and now, thankfully, since my books came out, a couple of writers from the Philippines, a handful or so, I put out books and magazine articles and stories corroborating the research that I putting out even more research and stuff that I was not aware of at the time, and with all the YouTube videos and everything, websites, and the stuff can be easily found nowadays. But back then, I mean, there was barely email. You had to send letters.
What are the differences between training with somebody like Tatang Illustrissimo and Angel Caballas?
Wow, very different. Angel Caballas was a great teacher for Westerners because he actually had, we like to compartmentalize things, right? We're like, you know, this is Monday, this is Tuesday, this is Wednesday, this is breakfast, this is lunch, this is dinner, right? These are blocking techniques, striking techniques, disarming techniques, like everything is a category, and we have white belt, yellow belt, green belt, blue belt, red, black, like this, right? So Angel was real fortunate. I mean, he opened the first public academy strictly dedicated to Eskrima, 1967 in the United States, although Ramiro Estelilia's father opened up one in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, I think 4 years earlier, but it was inside of a fitness club, like a health club, that he rented a space. So he was probably the first one to commercially teach commercially, but he wasn't the first one to put up a school just for that. But anyway, Grandmaster Cabales had a very organized way of teaching his system. So you've got 12 angles of attack. You've got blocks and counters for each one. You have a finite number of blocks, a finite number of defenses. It's like inside block, outside block, cross block, shoulder block, punch block, pass, two-step pass, and things they call like the inside number one. I mean, people have different names for them, but basically there's like 8 defenses, right? And then you would learn 3 to 5 counters for each angle. When you got to angle 5, you would start a drill called lock and block, which is a reflex training drill where you block and a counter, and then you lock or come back to fight a lock fighting guard. Angel, on his logo and his slogan was, every lock has a key, right? So you can unlock anybody's defense, right? So after you block and counter, you go back to your lock defensive position. So it should be called block and lock, but I guess you start off in the lock. I don't know. But and then he taught this kind of box pattern sparring thing called Sombrada that everyone has copied since the 60s from him. And then you got the empty hand techniques around angle 7 or so, and then through 12. When you finish that, you go back to the beginning and you get like 6 or 8 defenses on each angle, and then you get some picking or broken timing techniques and feinting techniques and so on. It's like a very progressive way of teaching, right? Very standardized way of doing counters. Now, Illustrissimo, forget it. Didn't have any of that. None of it, right? Here's a guy who never wanted to teach. He was just a fighter. And he had a very interesting blade-based system. Serrata is a stick-based system, a stick and dagger-based system. It's not Espadi Daga, it's Bastoni Daga. And a lot of my contemporaries are writing a lot of articles calling it a bladed art and bladed culture, but that's just the fad of today, that everybody in FMA feels like they have to say they're bladed or nobody's going to think that they're real. But actually, Angel's system was a stick system. He learned it as like a billy club or baton, which is why his stick is 20 to 24 inches, and most of ours is 26, 28, 30, or whatever, because he learned it as the defense system working the docks as a security guard with Disson. So they used a small baton, right, and a dagger, and that's what he learned in the 5 years he was with Disson. So he doesn't have really the double sticks, although he had an incorrect way of doing his redonda technique that he filmed on his videos with Koinoni at Leo Fang's group. But he didn't really have a double stick system, and there wasn't a sword system. And the nature of the Serrata strikes is not sword based. And all you guys can complain and say it's not true or blah blah blah, but you know it's true. And there's nothing wrong with being a kick-ass stick system. Eskrima Arnis is really a stick-based art. The 3 components are single stick, double stick, and Espadi Daga or Bastoni Daga, stick and dagger. And then they added the empty hands, right? Those are the 4. And if you're doing sword, that was part of more of Eskrima and less of Arnis, just because of the geographic location of where they use the name. But Illustrissimo style is basically a sword-based style. So when he teaches it as a sword, he calls it Calice Illustrissimo, meaning Calice is a cutlass, means cutlass, or sword. So it means the sword art of Illustrissimo, or Illustrissimo's sword. Ulissi is a name for a stick in Cebuano, right? We usually use baston, which is Spanish for cane, right? So, but he would call his Illustrissimo, like Ulissi and Illustrissimo together. Illustrissimo Arnis. So Arnis, when he would do the stick stuff, and Calice Illustrissimo when he would teach the sword, and the techniques were not identical, because you can't just take stick techniques and throw a sword in your hand, right? You can do sword techniques with a stick because you can level down, right? I can hit you with the blade edge of my sword, I cut you. If I hit you with where the blade would be on a stick, it'll hurt, right? But if you're doing abanicos and flipping techniques with your stick, you would be hitting with the flat side of your blade a lot, or the back dull side of the blade a lot. And there's a lot of disarms and things you can do with techniques with a stick of checking and parrying and disarming that you would no way would you put your hand in the way of that blade, a live blade. So it's just erroneous, this whole idea of they're all interchangeable. The gross movement might be interchangeable, but the specifics of going from stick to sword is quite dangerous, right? But if you learn the sword, you can go down to the stick very easily. So I teach them, one is an impact weapon and one is an edge slashing and thrusting weapon, right? You can thrust all day with your stick, and it's not going to kill me. You thrust once with the sword and I'm dead. I mean, the techniques are different. The targets are different, right? The method of movement is different, and the way you have to move away from the blade is different than how you can take a shot or put a stick next to your body to control it or something. I mean, it's just different. So Illustrissimo's method of, anyways, sword-based, but his method of teaching was he didn't have a curriculum. He didn't have 12 angles of attack. He didn't have all these kinds of things. These were things in the 80s that Yuli Romo and Tony Diego and Christopher Ricketts, they filmed him a lot. They would like take turns attacking him, and they all had training in other styles like Valinta Walk and Modern Arnis, you know. And they would attack him, and then he would do his counters, you know, and they would all get hit because he had no control, right? And then they would like film it and be like, okay, it's your turn to go up and get it. He's like, I don't want to get. I got the camera. You do it this time, you know. And they ended up then creating the list of all the techniques that he would do against their strikes. And then they came up with this teaching curriculum or teaching method, right? And they used the structure of the angles of attack from like we have just in other Filipino art. So it's okay. Here's a 1. Here's all the things he did against the 1. Well, then it turned out that he actually had names for all the techniques, right? Most of us in the U.S. we're not using the names. We're using like inside block, you know, outside sweep, you know, or umbrella block. But in the Philippines, they had like Modern Arnis used to use words like payong, Bandi Banda, and Palis Palis. So the actual traditional names, but most of the guys have stopped using them over here in the U.S. And Illustrissimo had all Spanish names for his, because he grew up during his parents grew up during a time when there was Spanish rule, and Spanish was the national language of the Philippines. Not that the art came from Spain or the Spanish fencing methods, but that the terminology was the national language of the frigging land. And that's why the Spanish term. So I don't know, all these people connecting it and saying, oh, we just get all this from the Spanish is not actually correct. It's just by fault of who was in charge of the country and what language was being used. But he had techniques like Estrella and Pluma and Boca de Lobo and Pauyon and et cetera, Panipis, et cetera, for the names of his techniques. But they were really conceptual, you know. And so when you would train with him, you would strike an angle 1, and he'd show you Pluma, this technique, right? And then he'd tell you to do it, and you do it, and he'd just shake his head and be like, "That's not what I did." You're like, "Wow, what did I miss?" So you strike him again, and you do the technique again, but it would be just different. And you'll go, "Oh, okay, I got it. I must have missed that part." And you do it, and you do it again. You look over, and you realize he's looking away, or it's like he's bored. And you're like, "What?" It's like, Tatang, please, that's what it is. Like, that's not what I did. And it's like, that's what you did. No, it's not what I did. Strike me again. You do it again differently. The middle piece looked the same, but all the beginning and end looked different. And you're like, come on, man, you just changed it. I mean, you don't speak to him irrelevantly that way, but irreverently that way. But that's in my head. I was like, come on, man, that's not what you showed, right?
Yeah.
But then I realized, he said, when you struck me angle 1 the first time, you stood still and you swung. The second time you did it, you stepped forward at me when you swung. You changed your range, so I had to change my technique. Really? Okay. And the next time you swung at me, your left leg was in front of your left foot was in front of your left foot. So the angle is actually off because of the way the hips would be instead of my other leg being forward. So the trajectory of my weapon was different. So he had to adjust for that. So the entry and the exit of the technique were different, but the technique itself is the B part in the middle, where he would hit on each side and move the weapon. But whether he countered down or up or over and under, or came in underneath, or came in underneath this way, or came in from the side this way, depended on me. And that's when I started to realize, wait a minute, you mean I should change the technique depending on how the angle that's coming in. Angle 1 is not always angle 1. I mean, when is angle 1 not angle 1? Well, is it angle 1 if I'm standing with my feet together and striking? Is it still angle 1 if I step forward and do the same strike? Is it still angle 1 if my left leg goes forward? Is it still angle 1 if I'm standing in the lead and then strike without stepping? Well, it all changes the angle that it's coming and the rate at which it's coming and the speed, right? And you have to adjust accordingly. And his footwork would change depending on, was he stepping forward while I was stepping forward, where most of the time we stand still, the guy steps forward and strikes and stands still, then you step forward and block and counter, right? And sometimes he would step forward, sometimes he would step back, sometimes he would go to the side with all different footwork because it depended how I approached him when I was striking, not knowing that it mattered. But that was a huge lesson for me, and it blew my mind because none of the other teachers were teaching that. And even today, most of them don't. You know, so that's a big part of the curriculum that I teach is, without having to say angle 1 6 different ways, let's practice counters against it, because then there's no way you can account for all that. So I changed my training and teaching away from memorizing counters for angles of attack to controlling time and space. When is the timing that I move, and how do I move into the space strategically that I want to be in, and then whatever technique I can use while I'm there to safely accomplish the goal of taking out the opponent is the one I use. So when somebody strikes at me, the first thing I do is my footwork moves. The second thing I do is I move into the gaps where his weapon is not. And then the technique will appear, whatever it is that I need to use. I don't stand and wait.
So that's
Very
pretty
different.
cool.
Yeah.
People will get some illustrissimo from you when they train with you at the seminar.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You know, I think that you mentioned this before in one of your other interviews, was that Angel Caballas de Cuerdas, he really didn't learn it. Where did he pick that up from?
I never said he didn't learn it. He did learn de Cuerdas. De Cuerdas was the style of Felicissimo Dizon.
Okay.
Angel learned the Serrata aspect of de Cuerdas. So in the Philippines, they have two methods. They categorize two methods of playing eskrima or Arnis, right?
Okay.
They have abierta, which is the open guard position, right? You have your stick and your gate is open here.
Okay.
Right? And then they have serrata, where the gate is closed, the stick being the gate. Whether it's here or as Caballas held it over here, right? His stick over here, like that.
Right.
And Illustrissimo always had his up here.
Okay.
Not always, but a lot. Sometimes he had it here, like to pose in pictures and stuff. But serrata guard, abierta guard. So there's techniques that originate from the abierta, and there's techniques that originate from serrata. Almost all the serrata techniques originate from the serrata guard. So Angel didn't learn the complete de Cuerdas system because he was only there for 5 years with Dizon, right? And during that time, he was working on the dock, so they had very little time to practice and play. But they drilled a lot of what they got, you know? So Angel really mastered, I mean tremendously mastered, the single stick and the stick and knife, bastoni daga, against the 12 attacks with great reflex training, great speed, great feinting maneuvers and techniques, and just really he was a phenomenal master of the serrata aspect of de Cuerdas. So he called his art serrata eskrima because he didn't want to take on the full name of de Cuerdas.
That's where I got it screwed up. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Mark.
that's okay. And this is how people misunderstand, right? So,
yeah, well, see, the problem is I've watched so many of your interviews and read through so many of your interviews and books. To prepare for this interview, just to let people know, I probably put in about 30 to 40 hours of work myself.
And that's a full paid work week without pay. The payoff is you get to talk to me.
We do it for love.
Yeah, we do.
And I'm hoping that I can count on you to be a point of contact for me, but a friend also. You know,
of course, sure.
I don't do this because I'm making any money. That's not what I'm doing here.
None of us do. But Dizon, you know, Dizon and Illustrissimo with friends, and Floro Villabrea, the famous master from Hawaii, of Hawaii that we know about, it was Illustrissimo's nephew. So that's why the techniques of the Villabrea Lagusa style look like serrata eskrima with a longer stick and with different footwork, right? Because Villabrea was the nephew of Illustrissimo, and Angel's teacher Dizon was training partners with Illustrissimo. So I'm not saying Illustrissimo was their teacher, but there's a cross influence there, and they're all Cebuano styles anyway. But there's a lot of similarity in the structure of their counters. Although the way that Illustrissimo played his sword is very different from the way serrata plays its stick. And the guys in Serrata who are using swords now while they're doing it, doing the Serrata techniques, are not actually doing. They're not doing Illustrissimo style. I mean, they're not doing the classic sword method. They're kind of inferring and interpolating sword techniques based on the Serrata stick counters, which is okay. Balintawak's doing that now too, which is really a single stick art, right? No double stick, etc. And nowadays they have a bladed, I call the bladed clan or bladed category of Balintawak. So I guess a lot of people are putting the bladed in because students are coming and asking for it, and they don't want to get left behind in the development of the art. I mean,
right.
Filipino martial arts is really interesting in how it's developed, and I know you have a question about that later about the ancient, classical, and modern. So when you get to that, I'll address it more. Yeah.
Okay. What I was wondering, how many trips you've taken to the Philippines, and what was the first year?
I've been there now 16 times.
Okay.
The first one was in '93 or '94, so I wasn't by any means the first American to go, or whatever. But I made quite a few trips. I used to go twice a year for a couple of years, then it was once a year, and then I skipped for about 7 years in there, just family and life getting in the way, not being able to get back. But I went 3 summers ago, and I just went this summer already again, and it was quite odd to go back, and most of the masters that were grandmasters that I was training with and that are in my books have passed away, and you're like, there's this huge new crop of people out, and you're like, I don't know any of these people. And they're all grandmasters of different styles, and you realize, oh, okay, you had these 3 teachers that I also had, so we're brothers, right? And you had these 2 teachers that I had, and we're brothers. But now you've all created your own styles, so you're grandmasters, But there's not many people carrying on the styles of the past masters. It's like they keep learning more and more and blending them and then calling it their own. I mean, especially even in arts like modern Arnis that were very well organized. Remy Presas and Ernesto, they all did a great, and Roberto did a great job of categorizing and structuring their technique. Very simple and easy to teach and learn, and now there's all these people who are modern Arnis black belts under one of the Presas brothers, mostly under Remy, are all now grandmasters of their own modern Arnis sect, you could call it. Modern Arnis Dumag, modern Arnis Mano Mano, something modern Arnis, and it's like, wow, to me, why can't we all just be, I'm a modern Arnis teacher, right, or master, and you're just the head of your own school or club, right? Why do you have to rename the style? Because then Remy's not getting the credit, right? And you don't keep that family art alive and all the effort he put in, right? So instead of having 700 people teaching modern Arnis around the world, you've got 200 people teaching modern Arnis and 500 people who call it something different, right? Because they've added something to it or subtracted something to it, but I realize that's the way that all the Philippine arts are going. That the name of the teacher and personal expression of the art seems to be more important than holding down a lineage. So in Chinese arts and Japanese arts, it's all about the lineage, right? I mean, in Japan, are you Menkyo Kaiden of these Koryu old systems, and it's very revered to be in that line and to be accepted into that group, and you don't dare change stuff, Or if you say you do Shotokan and karate, it goes to Gichin Funakoshi, right? And your teacher was this guy who was with the Japanese Karate Association at this time and whatever. And in the Chinese arts, the same thing. You're like, well, I'm Wing Chun, but I trained with this guy who trained with Yip Man, so you have this lineage is very important. In the Philippines, man, you can't trace it, a lot of the stuff, because people are just cross-training and watching YouTube and inventing techniques on the spot. And you could say that that it is the most alive of all martial arts because it's permeable, it's changing, it's adjusting. But now there's karambit and tomahawk in Filipino and Arnis, and those aren't traditional Arnis weapons, and tomahawk's Native American, right? And karambit's from Malay and Indonesian. Right. It's not really a traditional Filipino weapon. But you have all these guys now teaching tomahawk and karambit and firearms and all kinds of tactical stuff. And it's like, okay, but when does it cease to be FMA and become something different? And right, and if everybody is just ad-libbing and creating and developing on their own, should we just all just call it FMA and forget about putting the names on it? You know, I don't know. I used to grapple with it a lot, but now really I don't bother. I don't waste. It kept me up at night, so now I just like, okay, it's all good. You know.
Have you ever competed in martial arts?
Yeah, I competed in Taekwondo as a kid. You know, tournaments. I used to compete in wrestling in high school and middle school. I did competitive wrestling. I competed in Savate twice for North American championships. And did I compete in anything else? I think that was it. I don't know. I kind of, for myself, I never competed in the Filipino stuff because I don't agree. I don't subscribe to the tournament rules, and I don't think that wearing a big head guard and all that padded material and those big padded gloves and just hitting each other as fast and as many times as you can for a minute or two, whatever the round is, and they're counting up points. Like, you hit him 57 times, he hit you 56, so you win, but the first blow could have killed you.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody's just crashing in because they're not afraid to get hit.
Yeah.
And everybody's just sticking their arm up or not even blocking, just doing abanicos.
Yeah, it's not reality.
It's just, where's the art? I mean,
yeah.
Where's the art and where's the skill and where's the technique? And what if you got your wrist broken and your head knocked off in the first move, or 2 or 3? You know, technically they say three strikes, 3 blows, a man goes down in Arnis, right, or Eskrima. Well, obviously 129 and they're still standing. So
yeah.
I never felt like competing in that was worth the effort to do that. And I just I don't like competition in general anyway. I like testing skill, right?
Yeah.
That's for me personally, right? So if I get together with another practitioner and we want to do some flow or movement or whatever, it's like putting me in a scenario against another person who's trying to do their thing, and we're seeing how that plays out. And for me, that's very enjoyable, and it's very telling for me as a practitioner. You know, I used to love to do that when I when I met Illustrissimo and he sparred with me. We had padded sticks, and he just knocked me around, you know. And then I saw later he wasn't even looking at me. He was watching television in the next room while he was hitting me, you know. And I was just like, oh my God. It was like eye-opening experience, you know. But yeah, so I haven't competed too much in martial arts, at least not in the last 20 years or so. I guess I've been doing it 34 and a half years right now. I just don't see a point in it for me. A lot of people like to be pushed. They like to say, how good am I compared to other people? They like that external validation. None of that really matters to me. I just want to develop myself for myself.
Have you been called in as a historian for the making of a movie on Filipino martial arts?
The History Channel did a documentary a while ago, or maybe it was for one of the shows, one of the martial arts shows, and they asked me to contribute some photographs, which I did. They did a thing in the Philippines, but they didn't ask to interview me or talk to me about it. And then Jay Ignacio, who was one of the producers of the Bladed Hand documentary that's just being released, in 2010 reached out to me on Facebook and wanted to talk to me, but then didn't reach out again or include me in that. I keep getting stepped over. However, I am being interviewed next week to be on the Way of the Ballad Song documentary about Batangas in Rizal, Philippines, and the ballad song knife. So I'll be part of that, and that link is on the website and it's on Facebook, and we'll put it on here. I'm very excited about that. I tried to do my own documentaries on Filipino martial arts and could never get the funding. So all those years when I was traveling and meeting all these teachers up and down the Philippines and writing books, I was also videotaping them and shooting thousands. I mean, I've got tens of thousands of photographs, and I couldn't find funding to do it. I didn't know how to do it. You know, I'm not a video editor or a producer, and you know, it's a shame because a lot of those masters have passed on now. A whole generation is gone, and I wish I had had the opportunity to contribute something there, but we'll see what happens in the future.
You know, I spoke momentarily about the fact that I did a lot of research for this interview, and I watched the Doc Radio Network, the Modern Combat Master Show, and you discussed the correct way, or maybe the proper way, to greet a Manong.
Right.
So can you go through that and tell us, is that something that people should be aware of in the Filipino way, or is that a martial art way?
It's a Filipino way.
Okay.
So even if you're greeting, an elder family member or, an elder friend or somebody you're introduced to, you want to use words of humility and respect for that person. They still have respect for their elders in the Philippines, which is very nice. And you take the person's hand, like they would do in Britain, where you would kiss, and you put it to your head and you say mano po, or the hand of the elder, of the elder, and put it to your head. And I greeted Vicente Sanchez that way when I met up with him in this recent trip. He is the most senior grandmaster in the Manila area right now. He's at 82. And if I meet anybody over the age of 60, that's what I do in the Philippines.
Okay.
Filipino, just out of respect. Just out of respect. A lot of people just walk up, hey man, how you doing? Because the Filipinos also have a culture of using first names and using nicknames. Everybody's got a nickname.
Yeah.
And they'll just call each other by their nickname, no matter what age they are. But I think, especially for a foreigner trying to coexist in their culture or mesh with their culture, you got to bring your best manners. And if you want to study with the master, you should really show him the respect, and not just be like, yo, give me your techniques, I think respect and courtesy should just be across the board everywhere.
Let's talk about some of your books. What can you tell us about Tambuli Media?
So Tambuli Media is my new publishing company. It's almost a year old. Tambuli started out as like a horn that you blow, a carabao horn, to alert the town of a town meeting or of danger or of something. It's like, gather around, we got to tell you some stuff. So in 1993, I started publishing a newsletter called Tambuli Journal on Filipino martial arts, and I only got 3 issues out and ran out of money. Everybody wanted it for free, no one wanted to pay, so there it is. But I recently compiled the 3 of those into 1 issue called Tambuli Journal and have it for sale for $9 up on Amazon if you want to check it out. A lot of good historical photos and articles in there, and letters, personal letters to me from like Ben Largusa and Amante Marinas and Chris Sayok and different people, Toby Tabosa from Hawaii from way back. Anyway, so I decided to, I haven't done a martial art book in like 10 years. For whatever reason, I couldn't find a publisher. I sold gobs of books, and all the traditional martial art books hit their peak and then dropped off, and everything now is jiu-jitsu and MMA. And the previous publishers that I worked with either went out of business, like Inside Kung Fu, or aren't publishing these traditional books anymore. And I wrote this book on disarming 5 years ago, and I couldn't find a publisher, and then finally Unique Publications picked it up, but then they ended up closing down. Inside Kung Fu went out of, closed down. Well, the business was sold, and then the new owners didn't know how to manage it, and they closed down that whole martial art division. And so the book sat for a couple of years, and I decided then, you know what, that one and a couple of my books I did with Tuttle Publishing are out of print, and I've got these other books I wrote on Silambam Indian staff fighting, on Malay Silat, from my trips at those places, and pictures of those masters as martial artists, as healer book. I'm just going to try and self-publish, publish my own, and then a whole bunch of people started calling me, hey, can you do my book? Can you do my book? Can you do my book? So I said, yeah, and we'll do DVDs too, and we'll do the distance learning program, and we'll just go full steam ahead, and we'll get out all the stuff. So
oh, that's great.
Yeah. So the first book last February 13th was Mastering Eskrima Disarms. And then, so I did that book, and then I did the Tambuli Journal re-release, the 20th anniversary of those newsletters into one thing. And then I did a 5 Ancestor Fist Gocho Kun 15-year anniversary book. And now I'm working on just a Dorobio Eskrima book with Grandmaster Dan Medina, and Pakamuk Cebuano Eskrima book with Grandmaster Felix Royles, a book on Hawaiian Eskrima in Hawaii with Grandmaster Mike Del Mar. I'm I'm doing working with David Gould and Lameko Eskrima guys to do something about Edgar Salite and his style. Doing a few kung fu books on Choi Li Fut, Dragon, Wing Chun with Robert Chu, Juk Bloom's Praying Mantis and Fut Sa Wing Chun with James Kama, and I mean, just the list is going on and on. I'll be doing 9 DVDs myself in March or April, and 3 on Eskrima, 3 on Kung Fu, 3 on Qigong, or something in that category. Mm-hmm. And I just want to put out the best books that we can put out. You know, I took probably 2,000 or 3,000 photographs on my recent trip to Manila, all different masters, doing techniques to include in more books. I've got another 5,000 or 6,000 photos in my archives that have not been published of different teachers doing techniques. I plan on including those, plus all the healing arts pictures. I mean, I did all this study with these shamans and bone setters and healers, and I want to do books that include that material. I've got I just did an arthritis book, which is my best-selling book. Go figure. Of course, everyone has arthritis, but not everyone wants to do Eskrima, right? I'm working on another headache book and book about headache treatments and whatever. So it's going to be real busy 2014, but I'm very excited, very excited. And anybody who's got a book idea out or a DVD idea out and they want to talk to me, please email me or reach out on Facebook, and we'll see if there's enough people who will buy it that we can assume will buy it. Then it's worth putting all the time and effort in for me to help you out with it. If not, and do it for you. If not, I'll just give you advice on how to do it yourself, you know, or something. But I'd like to try and get as many of these books out. You know, although Manongs are passing away, Tony Somera just passed away. I mean, and Nari Babal just passed away, and all the old timers in my other books have passed away. And boy, the generations are just losing out on that core Filipino martial art material. And a lot of what we see today, especially in the U.S., as Kali or Eskrima or FMA, is not pure FMA. It's FMA. It's like Filipino. It's like Eskrima has to be the MMA of weapons or something. You know, it's like we have this idea that it has to be tactical and tomahawk and crumbit and stick and sword and projectile and firearms and joint locks and stick grappling and all these things that traditionally it's not all of those things. You know, so why can't we just have the art as the art? And then if you want to add the other things, you can add the other things. But it ceases to be a Filipino martial art and becomes an American martial art at that point. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So Kung Fu went to Okinawa, becomes karate, right? Karate goes to Korea, becomes Taekwondo and Hapkido, right? But FMA comes to the United States, gets completely changed around, at least 50% changed around, but they still call it FMA and attach old names to it and attach tribal pictures and old Alibata writing and all this stuff that nobody reads in the Philippines. I mean, it's not like Chinese characters. And they try and like make these histories and these romantic pictures of modern techniques and modern developments. You know, it's like FMA has to be the JKD of weapons or something, or the MMA of weapons. And I don't know if that maybe there should just be a new category. You know, I don't know. That's just the romantic and historical anthropological part of me says this is what Arnis traditionally is in the Philippines and even is today. And there's only a few guys who are jumping out of the box. But over here in the West, man, it's like 90% of the guys are jumping out of the box and adding to it. And is it good or bad? I don't know. The techniques are good, right? The fighting is good, and the killing aspect is okay. I mean, you know, whatever you want to do with it. But is it still Filipino martial arts? I'm not so sure. But I'm not really the one to put the judgment down on that. You know, it's for the public to decide.
From your first book, The Secrets of Kabbalah Sarada Eskrima, which was published in '94 and then re-released in 2000 by Tuttle Martial Arts, I heard that some of the practitioners were unhappy about the photographs and things in the book. Now, you've developed some new technologies since then. Can you describe what that situation was all about and how you've remedied?
Well, the first book was in '94. Was called Filipino Martial Arts Kabbalah Sarada Eskrima. The Secrets of Kabbalah Sarada Eskrima was the second edition of the book, or a rewrite of it that came out in in '99 or something, or '90. I don't remember, '99, somewhere in there. Okay. So the first book came out. I don't know why I was 18 or 19 years old, and Grandmaster Cabalas asked me to write a series of books with him on his style. And we made an outline for 6 books. And I don't know why he asked me. You know, when I talked to some of the other seniors who were there at the time, Frank Williamas or Darren T-Bone, Jerry Preciado, and Anthony Davis, you know, they say, well, Angel just saw this young, vibrant, young kid coming in full of energy and wanting to do stuff, and he just really trusted you and wanted you to be the one. There had been guys for decades asking him to do books and so forth on his art and videos, but nobody did them unless they broke off from him and then they did something. But nobody did it under his, while they were still under him, because he said no. So I didn't know any of that background when he asked me. I just thought, great, my master's asked me to do a book. I don't even know how to write an article, man. I'll try my best because I love martial art books and I have a huge collection, and I'll see what happens. And I wrote the draft and sent it around to 14 place publishers, and they all rejected it and said it was poorly written and nobody would buy it. Nobody knows what the style is. And I was like, man, that sucks. But I kept trying, and then Jim Coleman, who was the editor of Black Belt magazine at the time, 1991, said to me, send me a chapter and let me see about publishing an article on Angel on the style. And I did that, and he said, well, it's a good topic, but you're not a good writer. But here's how you can rework the article so we can publish it. And then with that little bit of help, he ended up publishing 2 articles on Angel, on Serrata, that I wrote in 1991 in Black Belt, or 91 or 2. And those were the first things I ever had published. And then I just sent myself, I was in college at the time, and every break between classes I was in the library reading books on how to write, how to edit, how to publish, how to print, how to distribute, how to market, everything. So I rewrote the book I did with Angel. He liked it. He read it. He wrote the foreword and had Darren T-Bone's wife type it up. He signed it, and Darren's wife or Darren mailed it to me, or maybe Angel mailed it to me. I don't remember. But I still have it, the original letter, in the original envelope.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then Angel passed away. And there was no photos for the book. So, well, I'm a master of Serrata. I'll take the pictures myself, and I'm the author. And then I put some historical pictures of Angel in there, and he gave me the list of all the people who got ranked as master under him to put in the back of the book as the lineage. And I said, great, here we go. Little did I know it was going to be 15 years of backstabbing and screaming and hollering. I don't know what everybody's problem was. There was a couple guys in particular who were hell-bent on taking me down on the internet and in these chat groups that came up, and making death threats and challenges. I mean, I had quite a few death threats. I mean, it's crazy. Why didn't you include me in the masters list? Well, I didn't include anybody. Angel gave me the list, and Frank Williamas sat down at the table in his kitchen and said, oh, you spelled this guy's name wrong. No, this guy, Angel, wasn't he number 6 and he number 5? Oh, yeah, that's it. Change the sequence around. Okay. And it's like, hey, I'm just a writer, man. I was 19 years old, 20, I think, when the book came out. I mean, come on. Or 24 when the book came out. You know, it took me a few years to get it together. But I don't know what everybody was pissed about, but because Angel had passed away then, I guess they all thought that I was trying to put myself up as the head of the style with being the guy in the book. But people have kung fu books and karate books with them in it all the time, and they know they're not the grandmaster. It's just a little pettiness and jealousy. Yeah. There was another guy whose family was in the newspaper business in the Bay Area who just was like a thorn in my side for 20 years. Who was an advanced instructor. So Angel just had 3 ranks: basic, advanced, and master. It's kind of, I wish he had more, but those are the only 3 that he had. And you know, he didn't get his master's certificate, but he wanted to write the book and felt that he was the better qualified one. He actually wrote to one of the publishers I had submitted it to and told them that he would write the book instead of me or something, and that publisher called me and said, well, his family's in the newspaper business. Well, probably if he writes one, we'll take his instead of yours. And I actually lost that deal there because of him, and then he did a lot of backstabbing afterward. But Angel just didn't want him to write the book. I'd rather not mention the names, you know, politics, but he knows who he is. You know, and he just started decades of just backstabbing BS, and a couple of the other guys, I don't know, I really don't understand what the problem was. And they were saying, well, the techniques in the picture, you're not doing Serrata techniques, the movements are too wide. I said, so obviously you guys didn't read the book, because in the introduction it says the photographs, the movements in the photographs are exaggerated on purpose so that the person can learn the motions by looking, because if you just do this, they can't see anything and know how to generate power, right?
Yeah.
And it says, but they didn't read the book. They just looked at the pictures and dismissed it. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to redo another book, Serata book, and it's not going to be the second in the series that Angel wanted. It's just going to be another one-off book, and it's going to replace my book. Because if I do this, the publisher said if I do the new book, the other one has to go out of print because they don't think they could. They don't want two of the same book on the market.
Overlapping.
Okay. Yeah. So I kept only 8 pages of the original book, and the whole rest of it is new material. And I went into Stockton, and the late Tony Somera and I got together and decided to pull the Bahalana and the Serata groups together, and Joel Juanitas was there, Master Joel, and a whole bunch of my Serata brothers were there. And some, you know, Darren T-Bone and Ron Saturno and Gabriel Sunchin, Vincent Cabal, and just like everybody, almost the entire group was there. And I shot pictures of them. I said, you guys will all be in the book. I'll take pictures of you guys doing the technique. Not only that, but I'm going to let you all have a chance to write a story about your relationship with Angel. Whatever you want to share, your training with him, a personal incident, an insight, what it was like hanging out with him, whatever. And I'll give you guys each a chapter to write whatever you want. So a bunch of them said they were going to write, but not everybody turned something in. But a bunch of them did. So there's a whole bunch of stories in there, nice insights from different people other than me. And I took myself out of all the pictures. And I only put in photographs of those guys doing the techniques. And I had been to Albon Bayet had met me in Grandmaster Albon Bayet had met me in Laguna, Philippines, in Paete, where they have a big Arnis association. And one of the older men there, Modi Madrigal, was classmates with Felicissimo Dizon. Well, not class. He was younger. Dizon was older, but they were in the same original Doce Paris group, different from the one in Cebu in the Cañete families. This was a different one. Down, and they went through that De Cuerdas tunnel, and they trained together, and he had all the classical postures. This guy was amazing. When I saw him, I was like, wow, that's like old Angel's postures that he would do. And then I got this book called The Banahal Guru, where they talked about, an Illustrissimo family member wrote that book and talked about the tunnels as well, and gave lots of accounts of it on Mount Banahal, which is a spiritual mountain where people do pilgrimages. And that was the same information I got from the Paete group about Dizon. So all that was corroborated. So I added all that information into the Secrets of Serata book, and I put photographs of that teacher in there, and some stories, and then stories from the other Serata masters and teachers about their work with Angel, and then time with Angel, and then photos of all of them doing techniques. How could anything go wrong? Well, the book comes out, and there's a bunch of disgruntled people on Amazon saying it sucks, it's horrible, and they're bitching about each other's techniques. Right?
Yeah.
So now they see. I put mine out there. Everyone complained. Well, now there's 9 of you guys or 10 of you guys in the pictures, and everybody's complaining about everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like, are we so petty? I mean, come on, right? So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. So whatever the problem is, it's systemic within the group itself, you know, and.
Master Art, I believe that Master Art Miraflor reviewed the book on Amazon.com. If one can believe what they read, you know, I mean, I'm not sure that it really was Art Miraflor, but
it was. He told me.
Okay, he said that if I've read the book and it doesn't get any better than this.
Right.
So I think that we can take his word for it. I've got the book myself, and I thought it was really great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and Art was there a long time before I was, you know, and he's such a nice man, you know.
Okay.
And he was training long before me in the 60s. So, yeah, Angel was happy with it, and I changed it up to invite everybody else in, and a lot of guys were happy with it, and some were still complaining. So I don't know what the problem is, but I don't have any intention of doing another Serata book, but I will certainly help any of my Serata brothers if they'd like to produce a book. So 2 other people did Serata books. J.C. Caballero did a book. And he and I were friendly, and then when we even met up at Ramiro Estelilia's home in Fresno, and then he put out his book and slammed my book, which is kind of weird. And then we haven't talked since. I'm not sure what his deal is. But and his book was okay. And then Anthony Davis put out a little Serrata book with Koinonia, with Leo Fong's production company. But people didn't really have the same reaction against their books as they did with mine. But I don't know, I think mine may have sold more copies and had more impact overall. I mean, at one point, my Secrets of Serrata book was the #2 selling book in Stockton, California.
I believe it.
Yeah. But I think because of the effort of that, number one is because of Angel Cabales asking me to do it, that it changed the whole course of my life. I mean, I got into writing and researching and meeting all these other teachers and masters and writing more books just because of his request. So I certainly owe a debt of gratitude to that request. And Serrata got put on the map in a very big way. And all these guys, my contemporaries and my seniors got a lot of students out of just having the book out there. It's
Your
just
book
a shame
is, I was going to say, your book is how I got into FMA, because I was in Silicon Valley working for a biotech, and I went to the bookstore down there in, I don't know if it was Sunnyvale but I went to the bookstore, I went to Borders, and I picked up 2 books on Serrata and Eskrima. Your book was one, and then the other book was on Bahalana by Samara. Yep. And when the biotech that I was working at shut down, I just went up to Stockton.
Yeah.
Because I was right there. I was like, this is crazy. I'm in California. Stockton's about 45 minutes away. I'm going to go check these guys out. And that's how I got in, was through your book.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people look forward to reading these books. That's why we're going to put the links at the end of the movie. The links will be up within a week. And I just want to make sure that people understand that, if they have a son or a daughter and they want to buy some book and get them into FMA, this is a great way. It's a great Christmas present. We're coming up on Christmas, and you're going to order up some books and give the books to the kids and let them dream about doing
That's
FMA.
Right. Just not nightmares. Don't dream nightmares.
No.
You know what? It's funny that I've been judged much more kindly by the people who came after me than by my own peers, right? And I think it's because my peers looked at my work as, who's this guy trying to take the spotlight? When really none of the books were about me. I wrote about all other teachers and systems. The books were never focused about. In my first Serrata book, I may have been in the pictures demonstrating, but somebody has to. And I was a master of the style under Cabales. Why not me?
Exactly.
But it wasn't. Nowhere in there was my history, or my training, or my association. Right? So it wasn't a book about me and I'm the head of Serrata, or look at me, look at me. It was a book about Serrata, and all the other FMA books I did have been books about other teachers, other masters, the history, the culture, and not about me. So I haven't been grabbing that spotlight. And it's just interesting now when I go to the Philippines or I travel around. I mean, 20 years have gone by since my first book till now, right? And almost a dozen books in there, and so many people have said that they got into the arts because of my books, and so many of the older masters have said, and professors at different universities in the Philippines have said how grateful they were for the books, and why did it take a Westerner to write such books on Filipino martial arts, right? Yeah. All right, and all the arts that I expose and teachers that I expose, and they're very thankful and grateful. So that's it's really good to hear at this point. I mean, I went through I don't know Danny Nosano well. I could say I have no relationship with Danny Nosano. He was one of my heroes growing up in the martial arts, and I met him a few times in the early 80s or mid to late 80s. I did some training camps with him and some seminars with him and shared some meals. I was just a kid, a teenager, I was nobody to him, of course. Always looked up to him, but for whatever reason, as soon as I got into writing books about Filipino martial arts, I haven't been given access to him, and he hasn't agreed to let me interview him or include him in any of my books, and it's really disheartening for me because I respect him so much, and I would love to either write a co-project with him or just include him. I mean, I've included photos of him in my books that other people have owned, so I had the rights to use those photographs. But in the Eskrima Disarms book, I didn't get responses back from my requests for him for photographs or to be included in the book. But I've known his son-in-law Ron Balicki, I mean, we trained together at the Degerberg Academy in Chicago in the 80s. I mean, we go way back, and I'm friendly with Dan's daughter, Diana Lee Inosanto. And they're just great people, so they agreed to send me photographs so I can include the Inosanto method in the book. But I hope one day that I'll have the opportunity to interview Guru Dan, or at least just have a conversation with him and let him know how deeply I respect him and all of his efforts. And I wonder, like, all his books went out of print at one point. You know, Filipino Martial Arts, Guide to Martial Arts Training with Equipment, Absorb What Is Useful. I mean, he had a bunch of books, and they all just went out of print. And I wonder if it's because if he got any of the kind of negative feedback that I got from my books, from the practitioners, I can't blame him for putting them out of print. But I'm not sure that's why. I'm just saying I can only imagine. He was really one of the first ones to put a really solid book out on FMA that talked about a broad range of teachers, right? His book was really, I mean, his book put us all in touch with FMA, you know. Remy Presas's book in the Modern Arnis book that came out with O'Hara Publications, and the ones in the Philippines are all in his one style, right? But Dan Inosanto wrote a book that included stories about all these different teachers and gave us our first look, right? And Jane Hallander, the late Jane Hallander, whom I was friendly with, wrote a bunch of articles or a 3-part series on Stockton Eskrima, you know, back in the 70s or in early 80s, and about the different teachers, and it was like, man, what a great thing. And you know, people try to compare my book Filipino Martial Cultures with Inosanto's book, but they're completely different books. I mean, they're not even really that similar. Dan's has just like a little chapter on history, which is based in the history that was known in the 70s about the Philippines. But the sociologists and cultural anthropologists and folklorists from the 70s to the 2000s did so much more research on their own country, not martial art related, just culturally related, and dismissed the theories that they had originally about the 3 waves of Malay migrations into the Philippines and all these things, and the Philippines' connection with the Majapahit Empire. And they've proven that the Philippines was never a part of the Majapahit Empire, which included much of Southeast Asia. And I mean, there's no Hindu influence in the Philippines. That's why there's no temples in the Philippines. Right. You know, like you see in Cambodia and Thailand, right? There's no temples, and only 20% or 10% of, I think, 20% of the entire population of the Philippines is Muslim, and the Malays live within Malay communities, and the Indonesians live in Indonesian communities. It's not like the whole islands were populated by Malays as the old wave migration theory put forth. But so all that information has been corrected within the Philippines in their anthropology and sociology and history books. But in the martial arts community, everybody's copying from Dan's book that says about that stuff, and everybody's building their history. So when I wrote Filipino Martial Culture and had the updated information based on the anthropological studies and archaeological evidence by scholars in the Philippines at the universities in the Philippines, everyone said I was lying, I had an agenda, I was trying to put down their art and their history, and why am I, you know, and it's like, oh my God, we're talking about research and what the scholars within the country itself is saying, not having to live up to a story about their martial art, but what is their cultural identity based on archaeological evidence.
Yeah.
And written evidence, you know, and so, but anyway, so Filipino Martial Culture has a huge section on history, and it's updated anthropological and archaeological information as of 1997 when it came out. And Dan's book, you know, just has like a chapter on history, but then he has like stories from a whole bunch of different teachers. And in my book, I wanted to have actually life histories and developments of the arts. It's much more in depth that way. And I have a section on weapons, and his doesn't. But then what his has that Filipino Martial Culture does not have is his has an entire conceptual instructional section of his book, where it says, like, this is a wing block, this is a shield, this is a roof block. Here's conceptually how it's done, and here's some different ways of doing it, you know, regardless of your style, right? And here's ways to train it, and here's how the different weapons come into play, and it's really gives us fabulous kind of conceptual overview of the art and stories of teachers of individual styles, right? It's really kind of a really nice book, you know, and mine was not instructional at all. and it was a history, anthropological, and oral tradition kind of a book is what I try to do. So the two are really not comparable. I think they would sit side by side, along with another one I did called Filipino Fighting Arts, which was Jane Hallander had put out a book which was originally a special issue magazine called The Complete Guide to Kung Fu Fighting Styles in the 80s, where she had, I don't know, 4, 8, 12, 16 or something different Kung Fu styles in one book. There was like a chapter on each style with photographs. And I thought, man, that'd be cool for the Philippine arts to have a book with like 12 different styles, just an overview of the style. I ended up collecting 25 styles and pictures of their techniques, and I interviewed the masters and asked them all, what's your training method? What's your sparring method? What's your strategy? And how do you develop within the art? And so each master got the chance to say whatever they wanted about their own art regarding those questions. And then they got to show techniques to demonstrate it. So it's like a comparative look at 25 different Filipino styles, side by side, based on the same 4 categories of information, right? So people could see, oh, there's not only just one art in the Philippines, you know. They don't all look at it the same way. They don't have the same strategy or the same method of development or the same type of drills. They're all a little bit different, you know, even though there's some similarities. And unfortunately, that book, it only had one print run in like 1999 or 2000, I forget, and then it never got reprinted again with Unique Publications. And now all the books from that company and the DVDs are held up with the company that bought them. So it's very hard to find, but there are some copies on Amazon floating around and some different booksellers online. But it's really, I think it's a really good book, not because I wrote it, but because of how it's put out, you know, how it's structured. And I think if you had that one, Filipino Martial Culture, and Inosano's book, that would be a nice, sturdy little set of 3. And there's another one I wrote called Arnis History and Development of Philippine Arts, where I had 8 or 9 contributors from different contributors in addition to myself writing articles. And there's a whole bunch of really interesting articles there, some by Tony Somera and Joe Petlaraya and Professor Hocano, Bachocano in the Philippines, and Dr. Ned Napange. And you get a lot of Filipinos writing about different aspects, rites and rituals and initiation and techniques and history and development, and Krishna Godanya wrote some stuff. He's in England, and that's a good one. That's a good one to get to for that kind of information, because Filipino martial culture started out much thicker, and the publisher cut it down to keep it within a certain price range. So all that extra material got put into the other book. But theoretically, they should be together.
You know, speaking about all these books, you wrote about the De Cuerdas Tunnel in Cebu, Philippines. Do you think it ever existed?
Yeah, we just talked about that. I think it existed in Mount Banahaw, which is in Laguna, which is in Luzon, the island of Luzon. So when I went down there and met with Modesto Madrigal, who remembers Dizon as being one of the seniors there, and he corroborated the information, and then that book called a Banahaw Guru, written by one of the Illustrissimos, also talked about the tunnels. So there wasn't anything like the Shaolin Temple. I mean, I don't think there was. I think the story that Angel gave me was oral tradition given to him from Dizon, but he never went there, I don't believe. And I was a young writer. Maybe there was some exaggeration there, or embellishing, like, you know, the Shaolin Wooden Man Hall. Did that really exist or not? Who knows, right? Indiana Jones, you know, running from the boulder. But the tunnel was there. It's just like a cave entrance, where you enter into the cave and go up into the different caverns. You know, they have them all over the place. Sometimes when you're at high tide, you got to swim through the water to get up into the rocks, and when it's at low tide, you can walk through. And a lot of people still take the tunnel up into Mount Banahaw, into different areas for their religious rituals.
But nobody actually swung weapons at anybody in the tunnel, did they? Or
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Oh, right.
You know, right. So the stories I get was that they did training in the tunnels. You know, I think Angel told me that they had weapons like on spring-loaded things up on the walls that would come out and hit you, and that's totally possible. I mean, we're only talking, you know, 50 or 60 years ago. And they could have set up some kind of training devices in there. That's completely possible. About fighting off sharks, I don't know if there's sharks in that water, and I don't know
Yeah.
if you're like, I didn't mean to come across like somebody was grappling with sharks, but certainly when he said you had to fight off the sharks to get into the tunnel, it could be when it's at high tide, you got to swim through, and there may have been some sharks. Maybe there were sand sharks. I really don't know. I was 19 when Angel, and 20 when he gave me the information. I didn't think to question it. I was just relating the information down. And then when I met with the Doce Paras down in Laguna, I met with Madrigal and some of the others, and they told me stories. They didn't mention sharks or spring-loaded weapons, but they mentioned the tunnels. And then Tony Diego gave me a copy of the Banahal Guru book, and they talked about the tunnels as well. So I believe that there's some more information that needs to be found, but I don't know that it's all that important to the narrative, except to say that they trained in a cave, and that was kind of like their place. And in Banahal, a lot of people go into these caverns to do religious rituals, so why not do martial arts there too?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, there's one master named Shiok Laraga who makes frequent pilgrimages up Banahal. So people are on Facebook and want to ask more, probably they could reach out to him.
Now, you must have quite an exquisite collection of Filipino martial arts books in your library at home. How did you come to purchase those books? I see in the book Filipino Martial Culture by Mark V. Wiley, Total Publishing, in '97, you said that you purchased around 172 books while in the Philippines.
Yeah.
That's
they weren't
pretty
all
amazing.
Yeah, they're not all martial art books. Most of those were anthropology books, archaeology books, books on folklore and oral traditions, right? Because you're really trying to get... I really wanted to tie the history of the art into a cultural context. And I couldn't get that cultural context reading the 1 or 2 page history on Filipino martial arts in martial art instructional books published in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Because they're more on techniques, not on history. And the guys who write them are not anthropologists, right? Or folklorists, right? So it's just the oral tradition, right? So I got a ton of books. I was very fortunate to have the late Eflanda Hocano, the professor of anthropology at the University of the Philippines, who passed away a week ago. His son, Bot Jocano, is now a professor there. He's been a professor for a while. He's a good friend of mine. But he mentored me a bit and helped me out with my research and he wrote lots of books, and there's another guy, Professor Tan, who writes a lot of books, and they have a little bit different theories, but essentially the whole ideas of the wave migrations and Arnis coming from Sea Lot and all these things is not proven or found at all in the archaeological record. And, this is just martial art folklore. And but what we do know are certain things based on what the archaeological record shows, based on what the ethnographers have copied down and studied about the Filipino ethno-linguistic groups. We call tribes, they call ethno-linguistic groups. And it's quite extraordinary. So he helped point me in the direction of getting a lot of these books. He had a bunch in his collection. I went to used bookstores throughout Manila and went to libraries, and got books. And a whole bunch of masters, not a whole bunch, a handful or more masters had their own typewritten books or manuscripts that they just had for themselves or for their students, and they gave me copies. So I got a lot I have a lot of unpublished material in my files from different masters from Cebu, from Negros, from Manila, from different places. There was a few books, maybe a dozen, that were published in the Philippines that went out of print right away that I got copies of. I do own an original copy of the first book written on Arnis in 1957 by Placido Yambao. That was given to me by my kung fu teacher Alex Ko, who bought it for 1 penny from George Ramos, who owned national bookstore chains, because he couldn't sell them, nobody wanted it. And now it's like, the secret missing book. I got it as a gift from a guy, my teacher, who got it for like $1 or a penny or something. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But a lot of the books, most of the books, I probably have 100. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. Most of my books are are not out because I don't look at some of them, but I'd say there's probably 40 books maybe on Filipino martial arts, and the other books I have are archaeology, anthropology, folklore, Filipino history, society, ethnographic accounts, which mention stuff that the tribes were doing or mention weapons that were prevalent. You know, so when you look at all that information together, the history and development of the art is painted completely different than what everybody keeps spewing off over here, which is just oral tradition and a copying of what was written in the 70s and 80s from people who didn't really research or at that time didn't have the current up-to-date archaeological information from what the scholars were doing in the Philippines. So, you know, everything has to start somewhere.
I think that will do it for today, Dr. Mark Wiley. What I would like to do would be to ask you if you would commit to doing another interview, a reading of the book that you were going to do with Mr. Samara, but he passed away. And maybe, I know you haven't spoken to Mr. Juanitas yet, but
right.
Hopefully he's watching the video, and maybe he will, maybe somebody will get word out to him. We'd definitely like him to do a reading with you about Bahala and the graduation ceremonies of Bahala.
Yeah, I would love to, and I'll send Master Joel an email and give him a call and ask him. I know this weekend is the funeral services for Grandmaster Tony, so I'll wait a week and give him some time. But I'll ask him if he'd like to do that with me. I would really.
Yeah, this is off in the future, of course. Yeah. Maybe a month or two from now, whenever it's convenient.
If he's willing to do it, I'd be more than happy to, and I'd love to do it with him. I think that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to actually have you do a reading on Bahala, because I don't think that there's any. Well, I know for a fact that myfma.net, the presentation that we're putting together right now, there's nothing like it anywhere else on the internet.
Right.
And what I'd like you to do would be to do a reading, because for a fact, I don't think anybody's done a reading from a Filipino martial arts book, specifically with regard to the groups in Sacramento, Bahala, which is probably the biggest group in the contiguous United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. I'll do it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
Okay, well, I'd like to sign off right now, and Dr. Wiley, if you have anything else that you'd like to say to the people watching.
Just keep the faith alive, man, and buy the book and support the book so that I can help other FMA masters publish their books. I've got a bunch on the schedule for 2014, but I'd really like to see another 40 books in FMA out, all in different styles, and have everybody get a chance to put their story and their art forward, especially the older traditional styles as they're disappearing right now. So let's do it all. Let's do some fundraisers for the Philippine Red Cross and help the victims from the typhoon that came through, and you know, stop all the nitpicking and ankle biting already. I mean, create, don't hate, and let's pull this all together and work together. Darren, my brother in Serrata, it's funny, Darren T-Bone's doing the same thing I'm doing, but he's doing it with DVDs. You know, I did it with books, and he's putting together these big seminars with different masters of Eskrima and putting them out on DVD, and I've been doing that and putting it out in books, and it's kind of like, together it's a good thing, and I think Angel Cabales inspired us both to do that, and hopefully other people will follow suit, and, you know, brotherhood's more important than separating the lines there, so. Thanks, Thomas. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a struggle. We made it through.
We made it through. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.